You ever have too much in your brain that you just need to write about it or talk about it? Because that's how I've been feeling over the last several weeks as this impending TikTok ban has become more and more of a reality. Now, if you're new to my channel or anything like that, I'm Madeline, and I am not a big influencer or content creator or anything. I have built a very humble following of about 60,000 followers on TikTok. This is not my full-time job or anything like that. However, I've been in the world of TikTok content creation for the last 4 years. Been on the app every single day for 4 years. And I also have a background in marketing. So I spend a lot of time thinking about this kind of stuff. It's just very interesting to me. So my content is usually talking about the outdoorsy world, about hiking, camping, solo adventuring as a woman in the outdoors. But since I have gained the majority of my following and created such an engaged, amazing community online, largely through TikTok, this is something that's very top of mind for me and I want to talk about because I think it's really important. So if this is interesting to you, if you've been following me for a while and you don't really care about my thoughts about that, that's totally fine. But if you're new to my content and this is your introduction to me, just know that I also talk about other stuff that's not related specifically to tech and social media and content creation. This is just kind of like a one-off just because it is such a big deal. I want to start off by talking first about the impact that TikTok has made in my life, because I think that maybe will give you a little bit of context as to why this has been so top of mind for me. Now, if you don't use TikTok, if you're not on the app every single day, you might think of TikTok as like the quote unquote dancing app or the app that just sells a bunch of cheapy products from China. I think that's the misconception that a lot of people have. It is not just children dancing to trending audios. It is not just people selling garbage products. TikTok is so much more than that. And I'll get into the actual data and the numbers and stuff in a little bit, but I just want to share my personal experience first and foremost. I have been in the content creation world for a very long time. I had a blog before the term influencer or content creator was even a thing. We used to just call ourselves bloggers. So I've been in the game for a very, very long time. I've never really taken content creation seriously or really intentionally tried to build a community online until TikTok. And a big piece of that is because whenever I felt like I was posting to any other social media platform, specifically Instagram, I felt like I had to create for an algorithm. I didn't feel like I could create what I wanted to create. I didn't feel like I could talk about what I wanted to talk about or in the style that I wanted to do it. It just felt like everything needed to fit into this neat little box that Instagram wanted to push. And whenever I tried to break free of that, my content just was never seen. So then TikTok came along and I was like, I guess I'll try this new thing, and slowly but surely started posting more. And then it wasn't until January of 2024 that my content actually really started to take off. So over the past year or so, I've built this really large, thriving community. And again, I say large because it's large to me. It's not large compared to a lot of these mega influencers, but 60,000 people, I mean, that's a lot of people. Got a lot of amazing engagement from people who are really interested in exploring the outdoors in a more approachable and realistic way than what they've historically seen online, which is oftentimes very, very misleading. And what gives influencers a bad name is this lack of authenticity and this lack of real education. I was able to provide that to my audience. And I've taken a lot of pride in that. And I just love it. I love connecting with all the people that I've been able to meet through TikTok. And I'm so thankful for it. And because of the community that we've built together on TikTok, we've now been able to launch Cozy Camping Club, which is in-person meetups. I've been able to launch my podcast, which helps amplify voices from people who have been historically excluded from the outdoor industry. Just so many amazing opportunities just from building my platform alone on TikTok. And then content creation aside, like my stuff aside, just as a person, I have had my worldview expanded so much by the people and the content that I have consumed on TikTok. I feel like I am a much better person now and much more educated now than I was in 2020. And that might sound crazy, again, to people who view TikTok as like a dancing kids app. That might sound wild, but I have been exposed to so many diverse voices, perspectives that I never would have been exposed to on Instagram, on Twitter, anywhere else, just because of the nature of how TikTok works. Like specifically, people from historically marginalized communities have been able to build platforms on TikTok that they were never able to do before. And the trolling is less. Like, there's just so many benefits to posting on TikTok and fostering community there. I don't know exactly the technical reasons why this is, but let me just say, like, TikTok has made a huge positive impact in my life, both professionally and personally. And I am so thankful for it. I cannot over explain. Like, I feel like every time I try to accurately share how much I've learned from the incredible community on TikTok, I'm like underselling it. I need you to understand the incredible value it has provided to my life. Like, even just simple things like recipes or little hacks for keeping my house clean, or little safety tips here and there, or just learning about what books I want to read next. I mean, just so many interesting perspectives from people that I never would have been exposed to on any other social media app. And then the other piece of it is, like, again, I'm getting to learn from all these historically marginalized people that I never would have been exposed to on any other app because of the trolling is so bad, because of the suppression of the algorithms and all that. I've learned so much about Indigenous communities, about Black communities, about so many nuances of how different people from me navigate the world and how I can become a better ally as a privileged white woman. Just incredible value. So that's why I care so deeply about this. And I've seen the value it's provided to other people in other communities outside of mine. And it just breaks my heart to think that that is going away. I just need people to understand this is not just a kids dancing app. This app has provided so much value to so many people that no other app has been able to replicate. Now, let's backtrack for a second. My opinions and feelings about TikTok aside, let's talk about what's potentially happening. Like, why am I even talking about this right now? Nothing has been formally announced yet. I'm recording this on the afternoon of Monday, January 13th, 2025. Nothing's been formally announced yet. However, the current state of what's going on with the Supreme Court, what's going on with the United States government and the app TikTok and their parent company ByteDance, is that on January 19th, TikTok is going to be completely banned in the United States. What that actually means, people are saying different things here and there. Some people, like the lawyer from ByteDance, was saying that, quote, they're going to go dark. To me, that sounds like you won't be able to even access the app at all. Other people are saying, oh no, the app just won't be able to get any new updates in the United States. So if you have it installed on your device, you can still post to it, you can still use it. It just won't get updates. So over time, it will get really, really buggy and then become unusable. I'm not sure what's totally going to happen. I don't think anybody knows right now. Maybe we'll find out soon. But as of right now, we have less than a week left of this app being extremely usable and being the app that we know it to be today. This decision is going to impact over 107 million Americans who use the platform. It's reported that 1/3 of all of the adults in the United States use TikTok. Let that sink in for a second. There are 7 million small businesses in the United States that depend on the app as well. The social commerce economy as a whole, like just the content creation economy, is projected to hit $2 trillion by 2026 with a 25% year-over-year growth rate. TikTok has played a massive role in that growth. Like, it's undeniable. I'm going to cite some stats that come from a report that was privately funded by TikTok. So take this with a grain of salt because we don't know how completely unbiased this research is, but it's from, quote, Oxford economists and reported by TikTok. But this is the only data that I'm able to find online right now about the actual economic impact TikTok specifically has contributed. But according to this report, which let's just, for all intents and purposes of this argument, let's just take this for face value. According to this report by Oxford economists, TikTok contributed over $24.2 billion to the U.S. economy and generated $14.7 billion in small business revenue. On top of that, $15 billion of that came from ads and marketing alone. TikTok also supported 224,000 jobs and contributed $5.3 billion in taxes to the U.S. government. If you know the scale of the U.S. government, you might be hearing these numbers and thinking like, that's a drop in the bucket. We're still talking about multiple billions and billions of dollars that won't go unnoticed if that just goes away, right? So let's just keep that in perspective. Sure, in the grand scheme of things, small percentage, but will it actually impact people's day-to-day lives and impact the economy as a whole from simply a numerical value? Yes, it will have an impact. That's just a fact. Maybe not as big as you think, but again, keep in mind, this is just a small report from TikTok that doesn't take into account anything outside of the reported numbers from small businesses. So we're not even talking about all of the content creators and influencers who don't self-identify as a small business. Like, those numbers are not even included in this report. It's not from the individual random person that has like a cleaning TikTok account that has made thousands and thousands of dollars off of an Amazon affiliate link to all their cleaning supplies. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't take all of those things into account that we know as TikTok users are incredibly valuable and contributing so much to the economy. Like, even just people being influenced to buy like an outfit somebody is wearing. Like, the amount of times someone just asked me what I'm wearing in a video, it blows my mind, just because of the incredible reach this app has. So there's a lot that is not included in this report that is going to impact our economy, our spending, people's jobs, people's livelihoods, people's income. So many anecdotes I've seen online are from people talking about how they will no longer be in business if TikTok goes away. So many people, largely small businesses and independent people, not big business. These are everyday average Americans. So why is this happening? If this is going to have such a huge economic impact, why are politicians gunning for this? Well, they are saying that because it's owned by this Chinese-owned company, ByteDance, that it poses a security risk to the American people. And in the effort to keep the American people's data and livelihoods protected, they need to ban this app, or TikTok needs to sell it to a US-owned company, right? That hasn't happened, so they are just going to be banning it. Again, in the effort to protect the American people. Now, I saw this one news report of someone comparing it to a, quote, gun aimed at Americans' heads. And this is where I think it's making me feel a little bit insane when I think about how much politicians are caring about TikTok in particular. They're okay with real guns, but not metaphorical ones, right? I just find it interesting that these politicians are so suddenly concerned about the safety and the welfare of the American people now when it comes to this company and this business and TikTok, which I'm going to talk about some of the other like cultural impacts of TikTok in a second. When, they're so focused on this, when there are hundreds of school shootings every year and gun violence is the #1 killer of children in the United States. Like, let that sink in. Guns are the #1 cause of death in the United States for children and teens. The #1. But let's focus on protecting the data of the American people. Look, I'm not saying that's not important. It certainly is. Data concerns, making sure the American people's data is protected, important shit, right? It's just interesting to me that they are coming from this with this like rhetoric of like, got to protect the safety of the American people. But I digress. It's also interesting that there's a lot of these politicians that will then hear arguments and people say, oh, well, yeah, the security risk is there, but, it's not the #1 issue for us. They'll then pivot and start talking about how TikTok is junk food for our brains. That's what someone from Fox News said. They'll say that it's, the danger of brain rot from TikTok and this dancing app. And it's like, again, it just tells me that you don't understand what TikTok is at all. So maybe the backend data concerns are all real and that's a valid concern, but they're also like, when they actually talk about the cultural impact of the app, they're not getting it. So then that, for me, it makes me doubt the reality that we are living in. That makes sense. So whatever. I will also say that just a lot of people don't get it. With the prospect of the TikTok ban coming up here in just a few days, a lot of people are talking about, well, just go to Instagram Reels, just go to YouTube Shorts, proposing these as alternatives to TikTok. But it's not a one-to-one replacement. Again, if you've been on TikTok, you know this. But if you haven't been on TikTok, you probably don't know. These platforms are not the same. Reels and Shorts are driven by algorithmic constraints that really prioritize specific trends, specific types of content. And I would say really highly prioritize specific types of creators. They really put people in a box that favors a very specific style, in my opinion, rather than fostering organic creativity, authentic storytelling, educational content, and really like niche communities. If you scroll through your Instagram Reels feed, so much of it is the same kind of like vibe. And I gave the example on social media when I was talking about this earlier. I was talking about how, I'm scrolling through and it's just a bunch of like vibey B-roll with text overlays on top, or people saying, read more in the caption. And then you have to read the caption so that the video plays over and over and over. And it superficially tells the algorithm that you're rewatching the video over and over. So then it rewards content creators who do this kind of thing. It's just, I don't want to like ding anybody for creating that type of content. I actually caught some heat about talking about how I really don't like this type of content. It's not a personal attack on the creators that have created that kind of content. I actually like feel bad. It sucks. And I kind of give props to all the creators who have been able to grow on Reels, on YouTube Shorts, because they've had to adapt to create for the algorithm. Otherwise, their shit won't get seen. It's definitely a unique skill set to be able to pivot to specifically tailor your content to work within a constraint like the algorithms here. I just don't like it. Don't like it. And that's okay. From going from TikTok where everything is so raw, everything's so authentic, the emphasis is on providing value, no matter how that is formatted. It's just very different. So I don't want anybody hearing this to be like embarrassed that they've been creating this specific like vibey content for Reels or super polished content for Shorts. No, like that's not what we're doing here. What I don't like is the algorithms rewarding only a specific type of content and not favoring creativity and original, authentic content, if that makes sense. I want people to go on to these platforms and provide value, provide authentic storytelling, and foster real human connection rather than gaming a system for visibility, right? Like the reason why people post on TikTok is for connection and community. The reason people post on Reels and Shorts is for visibility. It's two really, really different motivators. And that has fostered very, very different audiences and very, very different content creators. So they're so different. Okay. And I would say most TikTok users know this and they've recognized it. There's also a lot of hesitancy to want to join Meta-owned social media apps. That's like a whole nother can of worms that I'm not even going to get into today. But Meta just made a bunch of announcements about how they're changing their platforms to essentially enable more misinformation, more hateful rhetoric, and pivot more towards where Twitter went when Elon Musk made a bunch of changes. But that's a topic for a different day. So a lot of people are obviously not wanting to go onto those apps because they are anticipating the hate and the censorship and the bigotry and the misinformation. So it's very funny to me that since everybody's desperate for something else TikTok-esque, that they are latching onto something else. And that something else today is another Chinese-owned app, which completely eviscerates the original goal behind the US government wanting to eliminate TikTok. Everybody is going and downloading this app called Red Note. As of today, January 13th, 2025, it is the #1 social media app in the App Store in the United States. This Chinese-owned app that's like the TikTok equivalent in China. If we're not banning apps based on ownership or security, this feels to me more like a censorship and corporate interests thing. So I think it's just very funny that that is the impact that's happening. I actually downloaded this app, and the very first thing that showed up on my feed was a thirst trap edit of Luigi Mangione. Let's just, keep that in mind. TikTok users are not interested in their data security. They're interested in authentic connection and community, and will find it however they can. So if we take a step back again to talk about like the economic focus of these conversations, like I think that again keeps coming back to me being like, this is a corporate play, this is a money grab, this is why this is happening, it's not in favor of American safety. There is also the other piece of it that worries me, which is censorship, because TikTok has had such incredible cultural impact. It has, like, again, maybe this is a shock if you think that TikTok is just a dancing app to hear, but TikTok has fundamentally transformed how we share information and build community. No other platform has democratized content in the same way that TikTok has. It has amplified voices from historically marginalized groups. It's reduced trolling compared to other apps, at least, and curbed misinformation so much better than platforms like Facebook or Reels or Threads. It's also safer. Like, again, I keep talking about how marginalized communities have been able to thrive on TikTok more than they have on any other app. I pulled some research. I was trying to figure out, like, what's the data behind this versus just, my hunch and my anecdotal stories from people telling me this and me seeing this being self-reported online. But I pulled some research. The Trevor Project did some research, and they found that 53% of young queer people of color feel safe and understood on TikTok, as opposed to 41% on Instagram. Now, that's not a huge difference, and this was a 2023 report, so I don't know how things have changed since then. But the numbers, the data does tell a story here. I do think that there's just been so much more opportunity for people from historically marginalized communities to build platforms and have their voices heard on TikTok than any other app. Exactly why that is, I don't know. It will be interesting for us to really investigate that. But if we look at other businesses, other sectors aside from just like general creators and stuff, if we look at the book and the music industries, like TikTok has single-handedly revived and reshaped these two industries. So much of the music that is in the top charts right now is because of TikTok, because those songs have gone viral on TikTok and people use them in their content. Like almost every song I hear on the radio, I heard first on TikTok. And I would say the majority of people feel the same. There has been so much opportunity for these artists to go viral, to get tons of traction, visibility to their music and their art because of TikTok and the way it's formatted. Even Reels, like they rely heavily on the content that originated on TikTok. Like any music that goes trending on Instagram Reels went trending on TikTok weeks ago. The running joke is that everybody on Instagram Reels is like months and months behind. They just get a bunch of repurposed TikToks because TikTok is so ahead of the trends. And, it's a joke, but it's true. It is true. I will also say, like, the book industry, we talk about Book Talk and the impact it's had. And I know it's kind of the butt of a joke sometimes, but Barnes & Noble is opening up a bunch of in-person brick-and-mortar retail stores this year. Everybody else is closing their doors. They're opening up brick-and-mortar stores in 2025. That's unheard of. And that I really think that is largely due to Book Talk, because this community has been able to connect flourished and thrived unlike ever before because of the way that TikTok fosters community and also uplifts voices that we wouldn't have heard from otherwise. I have heard of so many incredible authors that I had never heard of before because of Book Talk. The other piece I will say here too is that community organizing and grassroots movements have been thriving on TikTok more than I've seen anywhere else. Like specifically around mutual aid and like real world boots on the ground activism. It has flourished so much because of the TikTok app in a way that I have not seen on any other app. It also allows us to share information so much quicker than anywhere else. This is more like real world, actual people sharing information and not just news sources, and not in the misinformation, conspiracy theory, not real way, in the real way of like, specifically like with the fires that are just happening right now in LA. We've seen so many eyewitness footage and heard so many more stories because so many people are sharing it on TikTok. They're not sharing it on other platforms in the same way. So I think that we've been able to organize as a people, as an American people on TikTok better than anywhere else. I'd be lying if I said I didn't think that probably scares the shit out of our government. And again, this sounds conspiracy theory-esque of me. I don't mean it to sound like that, but I do think that there is an element of that when we think about the impact of TikTok, information sharing, the democratization of content, grassroots organizing, mutual aid, all of these things. It's just interesting. It's interesting to me that the most impactful app in these areas is going to be banned. So what am I going to do if TikTok is banned? Well, I am going to stick around, right? The thing is I really thought about this for a long time. I started posting more on Reels a couple months ago in preparation for this. We kind of all saw the writing on the wall, right? And I started posting more, and my content's just not doing as well on Instagram Reels because it's just a different audience and people are accustomed to seeing a different type of content. And again, like I've talked about before, the algorithm favors a very different type of content than what I've seen be successful on TikTok. I personally do not want to sacrifice my integrity as a creative and as a content creator and as an outdoor educator in order to chase visibility on Instagram's algorithm. Now, I'm not saying anybody who creates content that fits the algorithm and performs really well is sacrificing integrity or lacks integrity or anything like that. Please do not misunderstand me. That is not what I'm saying. I actually really admire everybody who has figured out a way to game the system in a way that feels authentic to them. It just doesn't feel authentic to me. And my content might reach fewer people because of this, but I just really want to continue building this community that I've started on TikTok and really prioritize education, authenticity, and representation. And I know there's a lot of people who have just completely left Meta apps. They've left Instagram and they've left Threads because of these terrible changes that these platforms are making under Mark Zuckerberg's very misguided leadership. But I'm going to stick around because I think that as a white woman who holds a lot of privilege, I should show up in these spaces because by just who I am and my identity, my content's likely going to be viewed by more people now. And that gives me a lot of motivation to refuse to stay silent. I want to continue to take up space and make noise and use my privilege and platform for good when platforms like Meta continue to make changes that disproportionately harm marginalized people. So I'm going to continue to cultivate the spaces that I've built beyond social media, Patreon, Discord, the in-person meetups that we have planned for Cozy Camping Club. These 3 outlets, I think, will be hopefully future-proofing this community. So if you haven't engaged with me on those platforms, like please go over there. But I'll be on Instagram Reels, I'll be on YouTube Shorts, I'll be on Rednote, Neptune, whatever the next app is that pops up, I'll be there. But definitely the Patreon and Discord and in-person meetups, like that's where we're going to make sure that the community that we're building is sustainable and survives beyond all of these changes and aren't just reliant on the whim of greedy corporations and the United States government. I think it's really important that we're reliant on ourselves and figure out a way to do that through other platforms, other ways. So connect with me on the Patreon. You'll get access to the Discord server through that. I think that's a lot more secure and stable and no trolls, no algorithms, just community. So no matter what happens, I'm going to continue taking up space in the outdoors and uplifting all of the underrepresented voices that I possibly can. Now, I'm about at the end of my rambling here, and maybe you're thinking, Madeline, relax. It's not that serious, but I'm telling you, it is. I have been part of both the TikTok community and just the digital marketing world long enough to know that this ban feels eerily similar to burning books. The coverage, the news coverage, what politicians are talking about, what news people are talking about, like wildly underestimate TikTok's importance, both economically and culturally. And I am deeply concerned about the negative impact this is going to have on the United States. This fight is more than just about one singular app. It's about the future of creative expression, the future of small business growth, and the power of amplifying diverse voices online. I'm not going to go anywhere. I hope you aren't going to go anywhere. I hope we still continue to find a way to foster community. Connect with me on all the places, patreon.com/outdoorsy. That's how we'll stay connected. You get access to the Discord through that. And follow me on all the other platforms. You can just find me at Madeline Wilson Photo. And I hope to continue seeing you online and in person, because we're going to continue investing in in-person community as much as we can. When everything else is so precarious, we have to lean into that as much as we possibly can, and making sure those in-person meetups are accessible for everyone. I know this was a little bit of a wild podcast episode. If you're watching it on YouTube, thank you for sticking around. I'm sure my hand movements were just all over the place because I'm feeling so passionate about this. I hope that this was useful and informative to everybody. But until next time, I hope that you're able to get out into the great outdoors, however it feels good to you and makes sense to you. And just remember, you belong out there.